Welcome, everyone, to Go Fact Yourself, the Top 10 Lists podcast.
Great to be diving in.
Today, we are setting off on a pretty wild top 10 journey. This one comes from the top research you sent us, titled Top 10 Times the Government Said, Oops, and Accidentally Created Nightmares.
Yeah, some truly mind-bending stuff in there.
Yes,
Bureaucratic blunders, I think the source called them.
That's the term, and our job is to unpack these. Let's call them historical facepalms and pull out the most, well, surprising bits.
We've got 10 moments where governments, sometimes with good intention, sometimes maybe not so much,
Right.
managed to create outcomes ranging from just absurd to, frankly, terrifying.
That's going to be quite the ride through history, I think. So we'll count down from number 10. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Number 10.
Okay, kicking us off. Number 10 is Operation Acoustic Kitty.
Ah, yes, Acoustic Kitty. It's almost a perfect example of trying to force a very human idea onto, well, a cat.
A spy cat? Is that what we're talking about?
Basically, yeah. The CIA in the 60s, Cold War era, they genuinely tried to turn cats into spies.
Yeah.
Surgically implanted microphones, transmitters.
But cats, I mean, have they met a cat? They do what they want.
Exactly. That's the flaw, right? So the top research says the very first mission, it ended abruptly.
So abruptly.
Seconds. The cat was released near, I think, a Soviet target in D.C., and bam.
Yeah.
Hit by a taxi.
Oh, no. Seriously, after all that, the surgery, the training.
Yep. Over $20 million spent on the project, reportedly, all for one cat to meet its end crossing the road. The project was eventually scrapped as not practical.
You think? The source note about validating anyone trying to train a cat feels pretty spot on.
Totally. A multi-million-dollar lesson in feline independence.
Okay, wow. Let's move from spy cats to number 9, the Great Emu War.
Right. Less cloak and dagger, more feathers and frustration.
Sounds like it. What happened here?
So 1932, Western Australia, farmers are dealing with a massive emu problem. Huge flocks destroying crops after their breeding season.
Okay, an agricultural issue. So the government steps in.
They did. But their solution was unconventional. They deployed the Australian military, soldiers, machine guns.
Machine guns.
Right.
Against birds.
Yeah, WWI veterans with Lewis guns. The idea was, I guess, overwhelming force. But emus, turns out, are surprisingly tough targets.
Oh.
They're fast, they scatter erratically, they don't bunch up conveniently. The soldiers fired thousands of rounds. The source says maybe 2,500 in the first attempt.
Did it work?
Not really. They killed maybe a few hundred birds after a couple of attempts. The emus basically outmaneuvered them. The press had a field day. The military withdrew.
So the emus won.
Effectively, yes. The source called it a real-life Pokemon boss fight that Australia lost. It kind of shows the limits of military thinking for non-military problems, doesn't it?
Definitely a weird one. Okay, from emus to outer space. Number 8, Project Starfish Prime.
Ah, yeah. This one is bigger. Much bigger consequences. 1962, Cold War again.
What was the plan this time?
The U.S. detonated a hydrogen bomb, a big one, 1.4 megatons, about 250 miles up, above the Pacific near Johnston Atoll.
Nuking space. Why on earth would they do that?
Well, the stated goals were about understanding the effects on the Earth's magnetic field, maybe disrupting communications, possibly even as an anti-missile defense idea, testing the limits.
Okay, testing. But what actually happened? Did they miscalculate?
You could say that. They seriously underestimated the effects. It created these huge artificial auroras people saw in Hawaii.
Wow.
But it also knocked out radio communications across the Pacific. And worse, it pumped the Van Allen belt's Earth's natural radiation shields full of extra radiation.
That sounds bad.
It was. It damaged or destroyed several satellites, including Telstar 1, even a British one, Ariel 1. They just hadn't predicted how badly it would affect the orbital environment.
So, unintended consequences, big time. The source comment, why we can't have nice things in orbit, feels about right.
Exactly. A reminder that space isn't just empty void.
Okay, number 7 takes us into some really dark territory. MKUltra.
Yeah, this one is chilling. It's the CIA's infamous mind control program. Ran from the 50s into the early 70s.
Mind control. Like actually trying to control people's minds.
That was the goal, yeah. Exploring ways to influence or control behavior using drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, psychological torture, you name it.
And who are they testing this on?
This is the worst part. Often it was unwitting subjects. Prisoners, hospital patients, members of the public, even some of their own CIA employees. They
Hmm.
were given drugs like LSD without their knowledge or consent.
Without consent. That's horrific.
Absolutely. The top research mentions the tragic case of Frank Olson, a CIA scientist who died after being secretly dosed with LSD. And it wasn't just in the US. Similar experiments happen in Canada, too, at Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute.
God, it sounds like something out of a horror movie.
Right. The source asks, who needs horror movies when your tax dollars are already doing Black Ops acid trips? It really highlights the ethical vacuum there.
A terrifying abuse of power.
Okay.
Let's shift gears slightly. Number 6, Chicago's 1959 fog event. Sounds less sinister.
Well, maybe initially, but this story has a twist. In 1959, the U.S. Army Chemical Corps released a chemical cloud over Chicago, zinc-cadmium sulfide.
Why? What was the chemical for?
They claimed it was to study aerosol dispersion patterns, basically how particles spread in the air, like simulating how chemical or biological agents might drift over a city.
So they just released a chemical over a major city without telling anyone.
Pretty much. The problem was this zinc-cadmium sulfide created a really dense, unexpected fog. It led to a spike in traffic accidents, and tragically, some fatalities were linked to the poor visibility.
Oh, wow. So it was not harmless?
Not at all. And the government didn't admit they were responsible for years. It definitely didn't help public trust. Your source mentions how incidents like this feed into conspiracy theories about weather control.
You can see why when stuff like this actually happens. Okay, number 5. This was a classic of conspiracy lore. The Philadelphia experiment.
Ah, yes. The USS Eldridge, 1943. The story goes the Navy was trying to make a ship invisible.
Invisible how? Like stealth technology.
The original idea, maybe rooted in some actual research, was about making it invisible to radar using electromagnetic fields. Degaussing to counter magnetic mines was real, but this story, it ballooned.
Ballooned how? What are the claims?
The claims got wild. Not just radar invisibility, but actual visual invisibility. Then, teleportation. The ship supposedly vanished from Philadelphia and reappeared moments later in Norfolk, Virginia, hundreds of miles away.
Teleportation. A whole naval ship.
That's the legend. And then the stories about the crew. Psychological trauma, people going mad, even rumors of sailors being fused into the ship's metal structure.
Fused into the metal. Good grief. Did any of this actually happen?
The Navy flatly denies any such experiment ever took place. They say it's a hoax, misinterpretations of routine procedures, maybe sailors spinning yarns, but the stories persist, fueled by supposed eyewitnesses and conspiracy books.
It's definitely captured the imagination. The source's advice to hide under the couch if they mention Project Invisibility. Probably good advice.
Probably wise, yeah.
Okay, from disappearing ships to raining meat. Number 4, the Great Kentucky Meat Shower.
Chuckle slightly. Yes, this one is just uniquely bizarre. 1876, Olympia Springs, Kentucky. For several minutes, chunks of meat apparently fell from a clear sky.
Fell from the sky? Meat? What kind of meat?
Witnesses described it as maybe beef or venison, but it had a strange smell. Samples were analyzed. Some said lung tissue, possibly from a horse or even a human infant, though that's highly debated. Others said it was nostoc, a type of cyanobacteria that swells up when wet.
So, what's the theory? Where did it come from?
The most common scientific-ish explanation involves vultures. A large flock, maybe startled, vomiting their recent meal all at once while flying overhead.
Ew, okay, that's vivid.
It is. Other ideas involve weird atmospheric conditions, like updrafts carrying carcass pieces, but honestly, the top research notes it's still officially considered unexplained.
Raining meat, unexplained. Got it. The source joking about it being a bigger worry than global warming back then.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
Definitely puts things in perspective.
Okay, number 3. This one isn't funny at all. It's incredibly serious and shameful. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment.
Yeah, this is a profoundly dark chapter. Not really an oops, more like a deliberate, sustained ethical atrocity.
What exactly happened?
From 1932 all the way to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a study on hundreds of black men in Alabama who had syphilis. Around 400 had the disease, about 200 didn't as a control group.
A study. What were they studying?
They wanted to track the full progression of untreated syphilis. The horrifying part is they actively prevented these men from receiving treatment even after penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s.
They stopped them getting treatment.
Oh.
But did the men know?
No. They were told they were being treated for bad blood, a local term for various ailments. They were given placebos, ineffective treatments, spinal taps they thought were therapy, but they were never given the cure. They were exploited for data.
For 40 years. How did it finally stop?
A whistleblower, Peter Buxton, leaked the story to the press in 1972. The public outcry was immense, and the study was shut down. It led to major reforms in research ethics, but the damage, the loss of life, the betrayal of trust, it's immeasurable.
Just devastating. The source note about it being a real conspiracy, no tinfoil hat needed, absolutely chilling.
Truly, a stark example of institutional racism and unethical science.
Okay, moving to number 2, another ethically complex one, Operation Paperclip.
Right. Post-World War II, the Cold War is ramping up. The U.S. government realized Germany had some incredibly advanced scientists, particularly in rocketry.
Nazi scientists.
Yes. Under Operation Paperclip, a secret program, the U.S. recruited hundreds of German scientists and engineers, bringing them to America. This included people who had been members of the Nazi Party, even some linked to the SS or involved in using slave labor, like at the V-2 rocket facilities.
Why? Why bring them over, knowing their pasts?
The justification was national security and the race against the Soviet Union. They wanted their expertise for missile technology, aerospace, medicine, electronics. They felt they couldn't let the Soviets get them.
So people like Werner von Braun, the rocket scientist.
Exactly. He was probably the most famous paperclip recruit, became a key figure at NASA, instrumental in the Apollo program. But his wartime record, using concentration camp labor to build V-2s, was definitely problematic. The government often whitewashed or classified these scientists' backgrounds.
It's a massive ethical compromise, isn't it? Choosing technological advantage over accountability.
Absolutely. The source's analogy about not wanting to run a race in Nazi scientists' shoes really captures that uncomfortable truth. It was a deal with the devil in some ways for Cold War gains.
A very gray area of history. Which brings us to number 1, the biggest oops, perhaps. The Manhattan Project.
Yeah, arguably the most consequential secret government project ever. The development of the atomic bomb during World War II.
Developed in total secrecy.
Incredible secrecy, huge resources poured into multiple sites across the U.S. involving brilliant scientists. But even Vice President Truman didn't know about it until Roosevelt died. Allies like Britain were involved to some extent, but the full scope and the final weapon, that was kept incredibly tight.
And the oops part isn't the development itself, but the sheer unforeseen scale of its impact.
I think that's fair. The successful test, Trinity, in July 1945 showed its power. But the decision to use it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the instantaneous destruction, the hundreds of thousands of deaths, the radiation sickness, the ushering in of the nuclear age, it changed the world forever.
And the world only really understood what had been created after it was used.
Precisely. The genie was out of the bottle. The secrecy was necessary for wartime, perhaps, but the outcome was a power so immense, so devastating. It reshaped global politics, warfare, and our entire understanding of existential risk.
The source commentary says some mistakes are just too big to come back from. That feels accurate, thinking about the nuclear shadow we still live under.
It really does. The Manhattan Project stands as a monument to human ingenuity, but also a terrifying reminder of the consequences.
Wow. Okay, that was quite the top 10 journey through your top research. From spy cats that couldn't cross the road to weapons that changed the planet.
It really covers a spectrum, doesn't it? Absurd failures, lethal miscalculations, deep ethical breaches.
Definitely shows that history, especially when governments get involved in secret or ambitious projects, can be much stranger and sometimes much scarier than anything you could make up.
Indeed. Hopefully this Go Fact Yourself, the Top 10 Lists podcast, Top 10 Journey, gave everyone listening some WTF moments, as the show promises, but also some deeper food for thought.
Absolutely. And if you want to dig deeper, the sources mentioned in the top research often point towards declassified documents and further reading on all these events. It's worth exploring the contexts, the decision-making processes.
Yeah, understanding why these things happened is as important as knowing that they happened. What were the pressures, the assumptions, the blind spots?
And that leads us to a final provocative thought to leave you with. Thinking about these 10 examples, how does our idea of trust in government change when we know about things like MK Ultra or Tuskegee or even Starfish Prime?
Good question. And maybe tied to that, what responsibility do we as citizens have to, demand transparency and hold power accountable to try and prevent these kinds of nightmares in the future?
Something to definitely mull over. Thanks for joining us on this Go Fact Yourself Top 10 journey.
Thanks, everyone.
Remember to share, Rate, follow, and go fact yourself.